I don't like the word overrated. It seems like a pretty selfish and presumptuous way to describe something, to be honest, especially when it comes to movies. In today's internet age, it's become increasingly commonplace. People tend to use it very casually just for a dig at something that's popular. To me, it's a word that has very arrogant connotations, like you believe your opinion is the only one that matters. I think using that word is effectively no different than forcing your opinion on others, calling theirs wrong. That's why I never like to use the word overrated in my reviews, or when I'm talking about movies in everyday conversation. Regardless of how much I dislike something that's otherwise very popular, I know it still comes down to personal opinion. If I don't like something as much as everyone else does, it's usually because I either have my own issues with it or just don't see what everyone else sees in it. I know that's the usual context of the word overrated anyway, but like I said, using that word tends to add an extra touch of rudeness. That's just generally speaking, mind you. There are very, very few movies that I felt truly didn't deserve the overwhelming praise they got, but that doesn't mean they don't exist. So I've decided to pick out a few examples of movies, plus one particular video game, that at the push I would describe as overrated. Now, this video by its very nature is probably going to get some people upset, so please don't fly off the handle if you don't agree with me. I'm not trying to take these movies away from you. I'm just here to explain why I personally don't see the supposed greatness in them that everyone else apparently does. My arguments may seem a tad hypocritical, as none of these examples really deviate from my aforementioned point that I either have my own issues with them or just don't get them, but I just feel particularly strongly so about these ones. I usually just chalk it up to a difference of opinion and move on, but these ones I just can't let go. They especially baffle me. So let's look at 4 examples of movies whose praise I think is exaggerated. First, The Usual Suspect. Now don't get me wrong, I like this movie, but by God, people are just crazy about it. It's even in IMDb's top 50 best rated movies of all time. Why? Is it really just because of the twist ending? That seems like an extremely limited thing to draw on, almost completely disregarding the movie as a whole. And honestly, I didn't find it added to the movie's rewatch value. In fact, the second time I saw the movie, I liked it far less. As a crime drama, I don't think it really stands out from the crowd, mainly because the characters never appealed to me. I just never saw any chemistry between the cast members, which made the characters seem like nothing more than what they were, a band of misfits. So this isn't like The Sixth Sense, where it's a good movie even before you get to the twist ending, which just proves to be the cherry on top of an already delicious sundae. What I'm saying is, I don't see why The Usual Suspect is particularly worthy of discussion. I still like the movie, but I don't think it's great, sorry. My second example is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. This one is considered by fans and critics to be one of the best of the film series, but I wholeheartedly disagree. With the book it's based on, it's a different story. I adore the Prisoner of Azkaban book. I'd say it's my second favourite of the series, behind only Goblet of Fire if you're curious. And that's my main issue with the movie. I feel like I'm the only one who sees it as an affront to the book. It's not just that they left out important plot details or got things wrong, the movie as a whole gives the impression that the creators didn't even understand or respect the book at all. But even as a movie on its own terms, I just don't like looking at it. The cinematography makes every shot look too tight and every set look too small. I will concede that the acting is far better than it was in the first 2 movies, but otherwise I have to emphatically disagree with anyone who raves about how great this movie is. Every time I hear that praise, I feel the urge to shout, "The book is better! The book is better!" And anyone who says this is the most faithful of the movies to the books, because I have heard people make that claim, no offense, but I think you're deluded. Thirdly, I want to briefly comment on Frozen. Now, I'm eternally glad this turned out to be a far better movie than the trailer implied. This should go down in history as one of the most egregiously mismarketed movies ever. But my complaint is the same as everyone else's. By a certain point, I just got tired of this movie. I got sick of hearing people talk about it and seeing merchandise everywhere. I would feel worse if I didn't like the movie, but I was glad when the furore finally died down and the public consciousness moved on to other things. Good movie, yes. Best Disney movie ever made? No. And if I were trying to pass as a film scholar, my 4th and final example is probably the one that would cost me the most credibility. It's Once Upon a Time in the West. This is another one that's really high up in the IMDb top 250, so I'm probably going to get some flack for this. And while I urge you to hear me out, my explanation for why I don't think it's great is probably going to leave you a little miffed, because I simply don't remember this movie. I didn't see it when I was a little kid or anything. I started getting into westerns when I was in college. I watched several of the classics: Stagecoach, The Dollars Trilogy, Shane, High Noon, Unforgiven, The Searchers, loved them all. Then I got to Once Upon a Time in the West, and I remember nothing. Even a couple of days after I saw it, I couldn't remember anything about it. I literally remember more of Stagecoach, which I've also seen only once. I remember the plot was a stagecoach ride that passed through dangerous Indian territory, and I seem to recall one of the characters going into labor along the way. But with Once Upon a Time in the West, all I remember is the opening and the auction scene. That's it. The entirety of the remaining 2.5 hours is a complete blank. Well, okay, I remember a couple of images, but I have no clue what the plot of the movie was. I recall some scenes taking place on a train, but I couldn't tell you what they were about, what was happening, or what was being said. This movie was so uninteresting to me that it actually took me 3 sittings to get through it. Nothing happens, it's just 2.5 hours of rambling. I'm clearly missing something, but I didn't see anything to indicate why it's such a beloved classic. And that's why I can't think of any other movie that I'd be more inclined to describe as overrated. But the one piece of entertainment whose popularity is most inscrutable to me is not a movie, it's a video game. So here's where I present my award for the single most overrated game of all time, and I'm giving it to Octodad, Dadliest Catch. I hate this game. I honestly have no idea how it got popular. First of all, the premise is paper thin and really falls flat comedically. The whole joke is that this guy is an octopus and no one notices. That's the kind of thing that'd make for a quick throwaway gag, not the setup for the entire story. It's funny for a few seconds and then gets old exceedingly fast. And by a certain point, you just start to wonder how. How has still no one noticed? How did he father human children? And I don't know what's more disturbing, the question of how he fathered children, or the fact that the game has forced me to think about that scenario. But the one aspect of this game that I absolutely cannot forgive is the control. No matter how long I played, I could never get used to its overwhelmingly awkward control scheme. Look, I get it. Without bones, it would be very difficult to move with finesse or precision. I get that that's why the player character is very clumsy, and every day is a constant struggle not to knock anything over. But guess what? Playing a game where you're constantly fighting for control is not fun. It's frustrating. It means the challenge lies not in legitimate fair puzzles, but in handicapping the player. If any other game tried to pull something like that, it would be scorned and derided. So why is this game given a free pass? Why would anyone want to play this? I don't care if it's intentional, it's still not fun when the controls are constantly working against you. I don't think I'd mind so much if the goal of the game was to make a mess, to take full advantage of the protagonist's clumsiness. But it's not. You're trying to stay hidden, trying not to arouse suspicion. And like I said before, I stopped finding the premise funny a long time ago, so all levity is gone and all I'm left with is straight sobriety. I'm taking this thing entirely seriously, and that's why it's making me so angry. Trying to remain inconspicuous with a character you can't control is a fucking nightmare. There, I've had my little diatribe about Octodad. I do not get why everyone else is so taken with it. I have no idea why people are so forgiving of the points I've brought up, but all I can say is, I wish I was more like those people. I can only dream of living in a less critical headspace where none of that matters to me. And that's all I have to say. I've never been good at closing thoughts, so let's just say I hope you've got a good idea by now of why the word overrated as an appropriate adjective pops into my head so rarely. Do with that what you will, and let's see if anything else comes along and joins my very short list of overrated movies. Okay, now it's your turn. Are there any movies like that for you where you felt they truly didn't deserve the praise they got? There'll be a couple more extra videos like this in the coming months, as well as my usual reviews, so be sure to like and subscribe to see more. See you next time.